Well, today's Father's Day. Thanks, dads. I have my dad's tie on. That's why I kept my brother's ties, a few of my brother's ties, and a few of my dad's ties, and I have a little bit of my mother's jewelry. So depending upon the day, I always kind of carry them with me. So this is a little bit of my dad speaking to you today. You're so fortunate. A pastor was speaking to his congregation how Saturdays were always a day at his house that they did all the little errands and everything that needed to be done. And just a few weeks before that, he and their 6-year-old son, Jeff, had finished mowing the yard and raking the leaves and taking out the trash and doing all those kind of things that are great for a Saturday afternoon. And the father thought, oh, this is a perfect time. I'm gonna take this opportunity because I'm with Jeff. And he got the boy up on the trampoline and they laid down and they gazed up at the sun. And he just, wanted to have this sacred moment with his son. And all of a sudden his son said, Dad, why are we here? And the pastor thought this was, oh man, this is great. He's asking the perfect question. I've got an opportunity to teach. And so he explained how we were all children of God, and he could continue how we went on to, we're sent here to be God's, because God loved us, and God wants us to experience all the things that he's given us and created for us, and he wants us to serve one another with love and to learn and to grow and to develop those qualities that will allow us to return to him someday. And the father paused and he said to his son, did I take care of your question? Did I get it answered correctly? And Jeff said, not really, Dad. And the pastor then began to think, oh my God, how else am I going to explain it to a 6-year-old? How am I going to answer this question? And Jeff asked again, Dad, why are we're here? Weren't we supposed to pick Mom up an hour ago? It's hard to give a Father's Day or even a Mother's Day message. Why? Because while Father's Day can be a very happy and a joyous day, it can also be a very sad day. It's a day of pain and grief for some as they remember their dads. Not everyone looks forward to Father's Day. Maybe if you've recently lost a father and the pain of the loss is still very much with you. Or maybe you've lost a child and the loss of that you continue to grieve on Father's Day. Maybe you're having difficulty now with your father or the memories of your father. Your father didn't happen to be maybe the ideal man that you wanted him to be, and you have bad memories. Maybe you never ever had a real father and were raised in a foster home or by other relatives and you didn't know your dad. Maybe you were a single father and struggled with your perception of being a good father, a father and a mother to your children. Not every home is perfect. Not every home is like what we see on TV or what we remember Father Knows Best. We thought that was the ideal home. I loved it that they lived in twin beds. My parents didn't. Anyway, we're not as perfect as what people were on TV. Some of you have been raised by wonderful parents while others have been challenged. Today, I want to express gratitude to all of the dads in the audience today for the gifts that you gave your children, for how you made sacrifices for them, and how you tried to do the right thing. There isn't a person here today who hasn't been affected by fatherhood in some way, shape, or form. I remember a Father's Day card I sent to my father many years ago, and it happened to say, "Thank your wife today. That's the reason why you're a father." I sent it because I knew my dad would get a kick out of it, and he laughed when I called him. Whether he's dad or father or papa or buddy or boss, dada or chief, fathers play a crucial role in the development and the well-being of each and every one of us, of children and their families. Their involvement is linked to a series of positive outcomes for children, including better academic performance, higher self-esteem, fewer behavioral problems. When I think of my dad, the two words that really sum him up was he was my example of kindness and true honesty. What were some of the words that would describe your dad's, living or parted from you? Strong, generous, compassionate, loving, funny, hardworking, fair, devoted, devoted to family. It's nice to hear positive words and positive responses because so often we tend to think of the negative things about people that are in our lives. Frank Pittman once said, "Fathering is not something perfect men do, but something that perfects the man." Many of you mentioned those wonderful qualities from your dad, and so often we tend to place that negative there. And I'm grateful that you're looking at the positive today. Just how important are fathers in children's lives? In a recent study, some of the following studies were presented, and according to the US Census, brace yourself. 43% of children in America today have no father figure in their home. 85% of the youth that are in prisons come from homes that are fatherless. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. Pretty alarming statistics, don't you think? On the positive side, however, girls do better in math if they grow up with a father figure. Yay, Dad. Math was one of my decent topics, certainly not spelling. Boys get better grades when a father figure is in their lives. And children have fewer behavioral challenges in school when the father figure is involved in their lives. Angela Patton, who is the founder of At Promise for young African American girls, helped her members plan a Father's Day dance for 20 incarcerated fathers. And what was amazing about it is that they gave each the father and the girl, the daughter, a recording system of some shape or form that saved it permanently. And the father and there was time for the father and the daughter to sit in the room together and ask each other questions and tell each other things. And in turn, then when they went home, they were able to take these with them, and so that they could hear each other's voice until they saw them again. One 12-year-old was overheard asking her dad, "What do you see when you look at me?" Our children are our reflection. They're a reflection of what we've invested in them as individuals. They are a reflection of who we are. can't help but think of the song by Cat Stevens, The Cat in the Cradle, and the one line that says, "He had grown up just like me." And in that song, that was not a good thing. We so often understand investing our money to let it grow and make more money. But how often do we look at the time with our children, our grandchildren, as an ever greater investment in their lives as well as our own? Do we ever stop and think, what kind of man or woman am I? Am I preparing to be in the world? What does an investment look like in your children or your grandchildren? And even though your children may be adults, it's never too late to invest in them. Many of the qualities you mentioned earlier are part of a loving investment that your dad's made. Let's take a look at a few of the qualities that really are important. May shared how one time in her little Cessna, she was piloting her dad for the very first time, and nobody else was in the plane with her except her dad, not even an instructor. And she had always wanted to take him up promptly or first. And so she got up to 15,000 feet or 1,500 feet. And she goes, and the father said, "Look, I hear that you've gotten this far. Now we can go down." And Kay had really looked forward to this day. In fact, she had planned it. Her dad was a professor and previously had been a student at the Michigan State. And so she was planned on leaving the airport and flying up and over it and giving her dad a look at the campus from up above and then returning. And so she reminded him of this, and he replied, "I'm not fond of small planes. I just wanted you to know that I had confidence in you." Can you think of a time that your dad had confidence in what you were doing? What a wonderful memory that must be. Psychologists tell us that when children feel confident, they're more likely to have academic and personal success. As they mature and develop, they're more inclined to act independently. You know, this is in my notes, but it just hit me. When I was 3 years old, we had a small backyard, and had three neighbors. There were three neighbors together, and the men decided that it was time to replace the fence, and so they took it down. And I had gotten into my dad's tools. I was fascinated with his tools. And of course, a kid can't saw a straight line or hammer a full nail in. But I went ahead, and every day it was like I got home and I'm saying, "Dad, I need another bag of nails." And I'd make airplanes and kites and everything out of these things. And all my dad would ever say is, "That's wonderful. How great that is." And of course, he worked for Diamond Match, and so he'd bring home another sack of nails. But that was, he built my confidence and started that at the age of 3. They also learn effective problem solving, and they resist peer pressure when they have a dad that provides them with confidence. Building confidence means giving positive feedback on what you're proud of. It makes tasks achievable so it can be completed by the child. And be sure to focus on the efforts the child puts into the tasks rather than on the end results. Part of building confidence is also encouraging a child. A study conducted in 2019 indicated that parents who encouraged their children at least 5 times a day saw an improvement in the child's behavior. It's important to remember that praise and encouragement are two very different things. Praise focuses on what the parents think are often perfect and often in their judgment. And then children grow up to tend to want to please other people. Encouragement is non-judgmental. And encouragement points out the specific facts or the process instead of an evaluation of the child. Children who grow up in an environment where they're encouraged develop a strong sense of self-motivation and pride and are less concerned about pleasing others. How many of you have parented children? All of you? All of us have. Everyone who's ever been a parent, you want your child to succeed. One of the primary ways to help anyone to succeed is through empowerment. And the Oxford Dictionary says the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming their rights. An article on Bunker's Beat on the web indicated to empower children is to guide them to feel value, to feel capable, and to realize that they are the creators of their own lives. Their minds, like ours, are creators. The sooner they know this, the easier their life will be. As adults, we certainly understand that it is our consciousness that creates our life. Charles Fillmore states the mind is the starting point of every act and thought and feeling. Ernest Holmes tells us the only proof we have of mind is that we can think. Empowerment, which enables children to learn independence, is about allowing them to make choices and decisions about their own lives. That allows them to begin to understand how the choices they make affect their lives. We call them druthers. You want to do this, or would you rather do that? Of course, the druther was not that great. Fathers are our first teachers, and they teach by example. There are role models, and fathers teach important values and skills, and how to be kind and caring. I'll never forget watching my brother one time. He was sitting on the inside stairs of their home up to the bedrooms with his 6-year-old daughter with his arm around her, and she was very disappointed about something, as most 6-year-olds can be. And he was supporting her by validating her feelings. He was honest as they talk about how they might think of things, she might think of things next time differently. He was not only kind and loving, but he was using the moment to teach. Dads demonstrate and model how to teach others. When I'm on a spousal abuse call at the police department because a man has abused his wife, I often wonder what was his example in life. Children watch and listen to everything adults say and do, and one of the greatest gifts an adult can give a child is to keep a positive attitude. Show them how you want to behave through your behavior, and don't forget to be affectionate. Of course, goes without saying, the most important thing you can do is to make sure your children, regardless of their age, know they are loved. You know, my dad never ever said, "I love you." It wasn't that he didn't love us, because I knew that he did. It was just that I never heard those 3 words, "I love you." Later in life, when I lived in Orange County and my brother lived in Eugene, Oregon, our family would come together every summer up in Butte Meadows to a cabin. We had gone there since before I was even 2 years old. And it was a very special time, as there was fishing and hiking and games and lots of food all day long, and time for the family to catch up with each other. Bedtime for my brother's children was extra special. Emily and Andrew would get ready for bed, and they'd head for Grandpa's lap. Now, my dad was quite a storyteller. He knew family history from generations past, and my dad could weave a yarn like nobody else. And when story time was over, he would kiss each one of them and he'd ruffle their hair and say, I sure am glad you came to our house to live. And it was at that point in my life that I realized that Dad had been saying, I love you to my brother and I, our whole entire life. I was expecting it in 3 words, and he was saying it at 11. It doesn't matter how you say, I love you, just make sure that others know that you do. In 1974, Irma Bombeck wrote a column titled, God Didn't Skimp When He Created Fathers. When the good Lord was creating fathers, he started with a tall frame, and a female angel nearby said, what kind of a father is that? If you're going to make children so close to the ground, why have you put fathers so high? You won't be able to shoot marbles without kneeling down, or tuck a kid into bed without bending over, or even kiss a kid without stooping a lot. God smiled. Yes, but if I make the child or the father child size, who would children have to look up to? And when God made a father's hands, they were large and tough. And the angel just shook her head sadly and said, do you know what you're doing? Large hands are clumsy. Can't manage diaper pins and small buttons and rubber bands or ponytails, or even remove splinters that you get when you hit the baseball bat. God smiled. I know, but they're large enough to hold everything that a little boy takes out of his pocket at the end of the day. And they're large enough to cope the face of a child. And then God molded long, slim legs and broad shoulders, and the angel nearly had a heart attack. Boy, this is the end of the week, all right, she chuckled. Do you realize you just made a father without a lap? How's he going to pull a child close to him without a kid falling through his long legs? God smiled. He said, a mother needs a lap. A father needs strong shoulders to pull sleds, to balance a boy on a bike, and to hold a sleeping hand on the way home from the circus. God was in the middle of creating 2 of the largest feet anyone had ever seen when the angel absolutely could not contain herself anymore. And she said, that's not fair. Do you honestly think those large boats are going to dig out of bed every morning when the baby cries, or walk through a small birthday party without destroying 3 of the guests? God smiled and said, they'll work just fine. You'll see. They'll support a small child who wants to ride a horse to Banbury Cross, or scare off mice at the summer cabin, or display shoes that will be a challenge to fill. God worked throughout the night, giving the father a few words to say, but a firm, authoritative voice, eyes that saw everything, but remained calm and tolerant. Finally, almost as an afterthought, he added tears. Then he turned to the angel and said, now, are you satisfied that he can love as much as a mother? The angel shutteth up. May we all be blessed by the men in our lives who have loved, guided, and fathered us through all of our challenges. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in yours. And so it is. Amen.